What's happening, everybody? So a few months ago, I was inspired to start researching this topic because you started to see a lot of leg breaks in MMA. Whether it was by somebody checking a kick or whether it was somebody getting their kick checked, you were seeing these complete fractures of the lower half of the leg. And although it's happened at the big stage, it's also happened to people that I know too personally. And I believe that through deliberate supplementation, diet choices, if you're smart about things, your bones can be very dense deliberately, and you don't have to worry about being injured anywhere near as much. It's perfect for combat athletes, but it's also perfect for the general person living, aging, wanting to make sure that they age well, that they don't get hurt. So what I want to talk about are my food choices. I want to talk about minerals. I want to talk about some deliberate supplementation that you can do as well so that your bones remain healthy as possible and that you can train as hard as you want to and really have very little to worry about as far as fractures go. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's start off by talking about calcium. Of course, it's the most abundant mineral in your bones. And let's talk about how much you need a day. So the FDA recommends about 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams a day based on age, based on gender, based on size. And this amount is, I think, appropriate. It's also relatively easy to get from your diet. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to think about calcium being a more is better thing. In fact, if you take too much calcium, it can accumulate in your joints, it can accumulate in your arteries. It can really cause a lot of problems in that aspect. Now, just because you take more calcium doesn't necessarily mean that your bones will be denser. The only thing you might see is more calcium might lead to a slight increase in bone density, but in all honesty, it's probably from vitamin D anyways, which I'll show you as we progress. But also you have to account for calcium's effect on the nervous system as well. Too much calcium can lead to muscle twitches, it can lead to heart arrhythmia, so you really want to remain within that FDA guidelines more or less when it comes to calcium. So one thing calcium needs, amongst others, to effectively move in and out of cells in your body is magnesium. Now, about half of the United States population is magnesium deficient, and if you're wondering whether or not you are, just assume you are for the purposes of this. So without proper magnesium, not only can you not transport calcium effectively, but you're also going to be low in vitamin D because magnesium is a critical component in processing vitamin D for your body. So first, I want to talk about where my sources of calcium come from. First, every day I eat about 3 ounces of Pecorino Romano cheese, a very high quality hard cheese made from sheep's milk. In 3 ounces of Pecorino Romano cheese, I get roughly 70% of my recommended daily allotment of calcium in that. In addition, instead of having the A1 casein protein that most dairy milk from cows will have, sheep's milk has A2 casein protein, which for me personally is a lot easier digested. Now also, in addition to 3 ounces of Pecorino Romano cheese, I eat at least 1 cup of goat milk kefir every day. And a cup of goat milk kefir is going to have 30% of my daily allotment of calcium, also containing A2 casein protein, making it a lot easier to digest on my body. So in addition to my daily allotment of calcium, I want to talk about some other supplements that I take every day to affect bone health, one of which is vitamin D3. Now, I live in Las Vegas right now, so my regimen is 7,000 IUs of vitamin D3, 5,000 of which is taken in a supplement of vitamin D3 that's packaged with extra virgin olive oil. I think that point is important. And 2,000 of which are packaged within an omega-3 fatty acid supplement that I take. Now, vitamin D3 is important because it's what transports calcium throughout your body in order for it to be absorbed where it needs to be, i.e. the bones. And so I think vitamin D3 supplementation is a crucial component in being a healthy, optimized person. Now, my experience has been that if I live north of essentially the southern United States, basically Southern California, Las Vegas, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, that my vitamin D needs are higher through supplementation because I can't get as much from the sun, especially year round, as I would in the southern United States. And so when I lived in Denver, I was taking 5,000 more IUs. So I was taking 12,000 IUs a day of vitamin D3 to adequately meet my needs. Another supplement I take deliberately for bone health is Thorne's K vitamin. Specifically speaking to its formulation, it has 5 milligrams of vitamin K2 in MK4 form, which stops or reverses bone loss, grows stronger bones, reduces fractures by about 80%. It also has a milligram of K1, which is the vitamin K2 precursor in your body, particularly good for brain health. I'm happy they included it, but for our purposes today, it doesn't make a huge difference. But what does is the 90 micrograms of vitamin K2 and NK7 form. This is what is ultimately going to lead to denser bones that most people don't take unless you deliberately know about it. And so what I think is the most important component of the supplement is 90 micrograms of vitamin K2 in an MK7 form. Now this is what's going to affect your bone density more than anything else, promoting osteoblast formation and inhibiting osteoclast formation. In addition, every day I take 10 milligrams of boron citrate. Boron is a trace mineral essential for bone health. It's found in small amounts in bones, but more so than anything, it modulates testosterone in your body by allowing more of it to be free and used by your body. In other words, it doesn't change your natural production of testosterone, but what it does is it lowers a protein called sex hormone binding globulin that modulates how much of your testosterone is free. And so by lowering that, you have more of your usable testosterone in your body. And of course, there is a direct correlation between amount of testosterone in your body and the density of your bones. Also, every day I take 400 milligrams of chelated magnesium glycinate as a supplement, in addition to eating roughly half of a chocolate bar, minimum 88% cacao, which gives me in the ballpark of another 250 milligrams of bioavailable magnesium, so that my body is for sure not magnesium deficient. And this, in my experience, meets my needs. Either one or the other isn't enough in my mind. Now, the daily recommended allotment of magnesium for you is roughly 300 to 400 milligrams based on activity level, size, gender, age, all of that stuff. But for me, being incredibly active, 650 to 700 milligrams a day is about what I need to stave off cramps and to make sure that I have sufficient levels of magnesium in my body. Now, all of these minerals and supplements work in tandem to not only make sure that you have a proper calcium-magnesium balance in your body, but that the calcium can be transported and can be put in the effective spots. In a very, very simplistic sense, the way I want to outline calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin K2 is that calcium is the cargo, vitamin D3 is the train, and vitamin K2 is the conductor. So they all work synergistically to make sure that your calcium goes to the parts of your body that it needs to and is used as efficiently and effectively as possible to go into the bones to create new bones, to create stronger bones. Now, as an omnivore, you tend to have a little bit more leeway with calcium because fermented dairy like kefir, like yogurt, like cheese, all contain trace amounts of vitamin K2, which is one of the reasons why you don't see as many cases of osteoporosis or weaker bones in omnivores as you do in the plant-based community, because it comes as a complete package. There is some vitamin D, there is some vitamin K2 in cheese, albeit I don't think that there's enough in food alone to meet everybody's needs, but you do see a little bit less instances of this in the omnivore community than in the vegan community. In addition, naturally, with the omnivore community, there's a lot more presence of bioavailable calcium. In the vegan plant-based world, there isn't a lot of food that has a high amount of calcium. Most vegan foods have little to no absorbable calcium, and if they do, they're fortified with calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is a really inexpensive form of calcium. It's essentially Tums. It's basically an antacid, and it sort of works in a paradoxical way, because in order for calcium carbonate to be absorbed, you need to have high levels of stomach acid in your body. However, by taking calcium carbonate, it's an antacid. It lowers your amount of stomach acid naturally. So it's required that you take a lot more of that to meet your calcium needs. In addition, a lot of plants such as spinach and chocolate will contain high amounts of calcium oxalate, which is actually an anti-nutrient that will bind to other minerals in your body, thereby making them not as available in your body and not being used as an effective form of calcium for your body as well. In addition to the problem of anti-nutrients like calcium oxalate, most plants have a significant amount of fiber. And although fiber is a great thing for your microbiome and for keeping you regular and everything like that, the fact of the matter is that high amounts of fiber will inhibit nutrient absorption. So although something may on paper have a decent amount of calcium, like say broccoli, the high amount of fiber in broccoli is going to inhibit your body's ability to absorb the calcium effectively. So like I talked about earlier in this video, I don't normally recommend supplementation of calcium. However, in the vegan world, I think it's actually a pretty decent idea. Now, there are a couple of solid sources for supplementation of calcium. one of which is a product called Aquamine. It's a algae-derived calcium that is placed in a lot of higher-end products, a lot of higher-end milk substitutes, a lot of higher-end coffee creamers in the plant-based world. And I think that has a lot of promise. I don't know a lot about it. I know the companies that are using it, and I really stand by their products. I stand by their business models. I think they do a fantastic job. So I'm assuming they know more about Aquamine than I do, but they wouldn't be using it unless it were effective and it were something that would make their brand stand out. There's a supplement called Bone Renewal by a company called Pure Synergy that I think is fantastic. I think the complete mineral and supplementation mix is good if you're not super active and you are on a plant-based diet. I think it's great. If you want an easy solution that will give you the trace minerals, the vitamin D3, the vitamin K2, which is the most important, the calcium as well. I think the amount of calcium is a little bit low, and I think the vitamin K2 is a little bit low. But if you want to keep it simple and easy on yourself, you're not super active and you are plant-based, I think that supplement would be a great one to go for. Now, if you're as much of a nerd as I am and you're plant-based and you want to get your calcium from a whole food source, and you don't want to supplement it, believe it or not, my research shows that if you are plant-based and you want to get the most of your calcium from a natural source, the best way to do it is mineral water. Depending on the producer, a liter of mineral water can have as much as 50 to 60% of your daily value of calcium in a very bioavailable form. Believe it or not, more bioavailable than most dairy forms would even be. So I think that if you are plant-based and you want to find a way to get your calcium, drinking mineral water every day would be a great way to do so. So to sum it all up, what do I think? I think calcium, if possible, should come from your diet primarily and should come from a supplement only as a complete last resort. I think that regardless of whether you're an omnivore or whether you are plant-based, I think you can get all of your calcium from natural whole food sources. I think that everybody should supplement with a minimum of 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3 packaged with extra virgin olive oil every day. I've gone as high as 10, 15,000 IUs every day and didn't feel any adverse effects, but I think 5,000 IUs a day for most is a sweet spot. 10,000 if you live in a climate that's particularly cold or doesn't get a lot of sunlight. I think that everybody should take a minimum of 100 micrograms of vitamin K2 in an MK7 form. Whether you're taking Thorne's K supplement or whether you have a different source that will give you those numbers, I think that that's important. I think the vitamin K2 and MK4 and vitamin K1 are nice, but ultimately vitamin K2 and MK7 form with a minimum of 100 micrograms is the proper way to do it. And I think that magnesium is something that everybody that I know is deficient in. So I think that 600 milligrams of magnesium every day if you're particularly active, 400 if you're not, somewhere in that ballpark between 400 to 600 depending on your activity level, whatever works for you is what I would recommend. So with all of those together, in my experience, I can speak for myself that my bones are super dense. I don't have to worry about leg fractures. I never hurt my hands when I fight. My feet are always okay. My bones have withstood a significant amount of trauma over the years, and I have yet to break one. So I hope my system works for you. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I hope to make more videos like this, so if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them below. I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to fix them. So thanks a lot for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.